read it, is D1B and C. That's an email from Nicholas Balance, and he's talking to the detective in Moscow about the dates that he says this thing happens. And then he puts those dates in his cast draft report and in his cast final report, and they don't match up. There are different dates on those, different times on those. But the really big deal about that is that it's misleading when you say cell tower that also services this particular location. Moscow has, I think, 2 cell towers that service the town. Those cover places that one shops, places that one eats, places that one gets gas in Moscow. From the records, you can see handoffs, and so you know where a vehicle is going. You can know whether it's stationary or not. You can know whether it's parked, looking at a particular place or not. Based on those records, we also provided the records just so the court would know there's a volume of records. I don't expect the court to decipher those records. But based on those records, they absolutely knew that Mr. Koberger wasn't around that residence, wasn't parked near the residence, didn't stop and have his phone in a stationary position at that residence. They absolutely knew that that's not what was happening, but they put it in there to make a connection that didn't exist. They put it in there so that the judge would think that this was the right person, and they shouldn't have done that. They knew that was incorrect. They also changed that quite a bit, performed a drive testing, and so there were other bits of data that kept coming in so that they would know that was untrue. Now, for a magistrate to be relying, remember, on somebody who's a witness, somebody who's been interviewed 4 or 5 times, and continually says something that's absolutely impossible, has memory problems, and the judge never knows that, and we'll keep the IgG identification off to the side, but then you have this false narrative that looks like stalking, that looks like following.
I'm gonna talk a little bit about this idea that there's some issue with who did the work in reference to Google. They claim that the CSLI work alleges Koberger around the King Road residence. And this same claim is in Exhibit A signed by Detective Blaker. Well, this is inaccurate. The officer signing the affidavit did not claim to do the cast work.
AT&T.
Yes. They didn't claim to have gotten those records and put them in to their program to determine the approximate locations of the phone. That was done by Special Agent Balance. And the affidavit makes that clear. And defendant ignores the entire paragraph within Exhibit A that makes that clear. Quote, I consulted with an FBI special agent that's a certified member of CAST. This paragraph goes on to explain what CAST is, what CAST does, the experience that's involved as they balance his own experience. And then the law enforcement officer then states, from information provided by CAST, I was able to determine estimated locations. I was able to determine estimated locations for the 8458 phone. That's not claiming to have done the CSLI work, but instead it's just a reflection. The work was done by Balance, investigators reviewed that, and then made some determinations of the approximate locations for that 8458 phone. And we're going to get into this in a little bit down because this comes up again. All about the cell phone. And we're just going to take we have two different opinions about what those records show. We have an expert who tells us, and that's what was relayed in the probable cause affidavit. And those opinions haven't changed. We differ on a few factual issues. I believe there are 3 towers that provide service to the Moscow area. Defendant is cool.
Here's my concern with you telling me that at this stage of things. Where in the record is that currently? Apart from anything you may have submitted after they filed the Frank's motion.
What specifically?
If there are 3 towers.
I believe I referenced it in my response.
Yeah, but if you give me evidence and I rely on that evidence, then I have to give them a full Frank's hearing. And so that's why I've been very clear to say I'm looking at what the proffer is from the defense without evidence submitted by the state to determine whether they have met their threshold burden. And so I get concerned when you start telling me things that are not necessarily part of the evidence.
Understood. We can move past the number of towers. Here's what is in evidence, though, and based off of the PC affidavit, is that the phone was in the area for the tower that provides service to the 1122 residents. Still maintain that's true. Regardless, none of this has any bearing on the validity of the search warrant. Their argument is merely a clarification about which member did what work. And that doesn't matter to the ultimate determination for probable cause. Defendant then makes some allegations regarding an eyewitness statements related to DM. There's kind of 2 buckets of attacks here. The first bucket is that the defendant claims the magistrate was never informed that DM told law enforcement she, when shown a picture, didn't recognize the defendant.